Do you feel you've always seemed to me like kind of to be like a lone wolf kind of? Do you feel that?
I think that I don't feel that in life. I feel like, if anything, it's an embarrassment of riches with how many great mentors and friends that I have in and out of comedy. But when you're 28 years old and you hit the stratosphere, nobody can talk to you about that. Nobody understands it. And perception takes over, because then people start to believe that maybe you're not accessible. And who is accessible to you, you don't find out 2 years later. Bullshitters. People want to make a little scratch.
Right.
People that see something to gain.
Scoundrels, as you call them.
Scoundrels. Fucking, it's like Mos Eisley's Cantina from Star Wars. Like all the scum and villainy wants to seek you out because they want a piece of the sparkle, man.
Yeah.
Everybody wants some of the sparkle. You see somebody with sparkle, it's like, oh fuck, I want to glimmer with that person.
But now, what happens? Like, it's always seemed like you. Do you have this thing where it's like I have to do this myself? Because it always seems like you are this different kind of, like, you're like Pluto kind of a little bit. Not that you're pushed to the outside, but that you choose to kind of be in this, like.
Yeah, you don't know if I'm a planet or a ball of ice kind of thing.
Or just like a rumor that science made up, Like, it's like, you don't really know. It's like, is this guy a planet? Is this guy a ball of ice? You seem like that. You seem, so just a regular comedian coming up, it's like, who is this? Like, everybody else seems a little bit more accessible, a little bit more.
You feel that? I don't feel that with a lot of comedians.
Yeah, and maybe, and that could just be
your graduating
my
class,
perception.
Your graduating class, in my graduating class, I wouldn't feel that way about the comics I came up with in and around. But I think maybe it's generational.
Right.
When I met people ahead of me, I was intimidated to go up and talk to them. And you know what I did? I did the same thing people kind of put on me, which is they don't want to talk to me. Why would that person care about me? Why would I'd see David Spade or Chris Rock when I was young in New York? Why would they care about talking to me? So what did I do? I projected they're probably too cool for school.
Yeah.
Until finally you're at the comic table with somebody, or we're John like this, and you're like, oh shit, no, it's
not that crazy.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I don't feel like the Warden of the North, like some Game of Thrones thing where I'm Pluto or something on the far outside. I do like that's part of the interpretation of what I am, because it's a whole hell of a lot more interesting to be somebody where people want to put their hand on their chin and go,
what's going on?
Then somebody was like, yeah, we get it. I never wanted to be that. I thought I was that. I actually thought I was like, yeah, we get it. You move around a lot on stage and you're trying to write some stuff. We get it, and dismissed. Right. But if anything, the polarizing was like, oh, good. Yeah, I'm not milquetoast. I'm not fucking boring.
Right.
I'm interesting. I'm almost like a little bit of a good guy, bad guy. You don't know how I'm rolling.
Yeah, that's what I feel like with you. It seemed like the anti-hero.
Yeah. And you know what? It was fun. It's been fun. But
has that been a goal? It seems like, because I feel like you definitely seem like obviously super aware, especially comedians are hyper aware of like who we are and what's going on. I think anyway, a lot of,
and super sensitive as well.
And super sensitive, yeah. Which is one of the reasons you have to be hyper aware, because you have to know, or those things kind of go together, because it's like you're so aware that it makes you overly sensitive, because you're taking in so much that there's so many ways that we could feel offended easily. And so we're so aware and then so sensitive at the same time.
Yeah, I think that we're a lot of comics. I think what we do is we ruminate, and we're seeing 10 different incarnations of what could be. And what does that do? That then makes you start preparing for what if A happens, what if B happens. So we exert a lot of energy even in our stillness.
Dude, it is exhausting being hyper aware. It's exhausting having to constantly like protect yourself from like 7 different ways of feeling uncomfortable.
Right. You ever hear those stories about Jim Carrey early on in his career when he had this? And
did you ever work with him?
No, I never had the opportunity to work with him, but I've worked with people that have collaborated with him, and I usually don't just on hearsay. I need like a few different people to validate. And I started hearing from a few different folks that, like, back in the day when he would go to a party, if he thought people were going to fuck with him, doing what we're doing, thinking, oh, so-and-so is going to be there. What if she says this? What if he says that? That he would sit and pre-plan some stuff to roast you or haze you.
Right.
So you couldn't hurt him. Some 8 Mile shit, man.
Wow.
He had like it already on tap. He'd practice. Imagine the energy that took. Because what if you see one of those people? You know what I mean? And like, what if they just come up and
cheddar
like,
bobbing people? Yeah. He's like, yeah, your fucking neck.
Right? He.
That's the neck you wore. Yeah, I could see him. Yeah.
He would go deep cuts on that shit, and I understand a little bit of that. I think that the if you're thinking about a career in comedy, what you got to realize is it's an amazing community. It's a brotherhood. I mean that, guys and girls, but it's also really cutthroat, and it's also sometimes it's very participatory, and sometimes it's very isolating. And you got to know what you need to be at what point.
Right.
And that's hard to know. And I had to learn the hard way, which was pretty much on my own, but then meeting mentors along the years that were the knowledge that they passed on to me helped me to figure out what a career really is. And there's going to be a crest, and you're going to dip, and it's going to come up, and then there's so many more elements than just what we do on stage.
Right.
When
your career like blew up, because I mean, you had what I've talked about this even in discussions about you when you weren't around. That you were like kind of the Steve Martin of our time in the way that that somebody, no one has that. I mean, that's such a rare thing that somebody has that
trajectory.
Yeah. It's just a rare thing. It happens to someone, and it happened to you. And not saying that you're, obviously you did the work, but what happens like with your ego in that part? That's something we always talk about, because one of my scariest things to me is my own ego.
Right.
Because it's me, and I know that I'm crafty and that I'm cunning, and so I know that my ego is that as well.
Right.
Like what happened? Like did you find for yourself?
What I found was maybe a little different, because I had grown up so as an introvert. I had grown up with a lot of fear. I grew up as a self-loathing. I was in an environment of there was alcoholism in my family.
Yeah.
There was a lot of heaviness, and I felt like I grew up fast. So the years that I spent doing stand-up leading up to what would seemingly be an overnight sensation 15 years later, the ego stuff really wasn't like a bravado or some kind of cockiness. It was really more of, I'm finally starting to feel like I can love myself because I obtained something in life where I didn't really know what I would get to. I pipe dreamed a lot of big stuff, Steve Martin and Dice, and seeing these guys.
Definitely. You always have those in your head, especially if you're in the business and you're seeing other people have those things.
Yeah, and so I think that if I'm understanding correctly, it's like, to me, like ego was like, I'd be at the Cellar when I was still new, and Chris Rock would come in. He'd bump me. He'd bump anybody, and that was part of it. That was kind of like a rite of passage as a comedian. Like, okay, some bigger star is going to come in, and so when I made it, I was like, I can do that too. I can walk into the Laugh Factory, which is primarily where I would just go and feel like I can do what I want. I've arrived. So that was something I needed to get through the rotating door about, to realize like, no, there's still actually like, it's still procedural, and you can still have respect for your peers. And there's a way to do that that's more appropriate than just a barnstorming a club and then like go, so I got my knocks. I learned some lessons early on. Yeah. And only because certain names, and some I've named, would reach out and be like, can't do that, man. You don't want to do that. You want to try to play it like this, or and so I learned as I went, and now I try to kind of what we're doing here, pass on to whoever the next girl or guy is coming up, to say like, when people say stay humble, that's no bullshit. Really try to, keep yourself as modest. And it's nice to be self-affirming, but you gotta be able to, like, if you're gonna get a huge level of power in any industry, really, like how you manage that and how it reverberates off you to others, that impacts you years later when that person says, "Hey, thanks for being cool to me." Yeah, thanks for being. I remember one time, like Tosh, he got really mad at me. I never was really close to him, and we were in the Laugh Factory lobby once, and I usually talk out of school, but like this is one of those stories that, and I think I had put my hand out to him and he was like, no, man, no, I don't need you in my life. He said something that was really kind of harsh, and I was like, Daniel, what? I'm just, congrats on the success and all that. And he was not interested in having that conversation because I had not been cordial to him coming up. I probably didn't take the time on many nights at the factory to
hobnob or just.
Yeah, I had not realized that the level of influence that I had that younger comedians at that moment, not now, but at that moment, like that would hurt them if I were to walk by and not acknowledge them. But I wasn't doing it to hurt anybody. I was just still an introvert in many ways.
Right.
It's perplexing and a paradox sometimes even, for me. We had a very deep conversation off pod and we're complex.
Yeah, we're complex beings. And you and I have never been like close, but we just seen each other in clubs, talked a few times, and then I came up to your house and we hung out that time. Yeah, it was definitely interesting because I didn't know. Yeah, it's like I feel like other comedians you kind of get a vibe from and you kind of get an understanding of,
right.
And you kind of seem like that rare element that's kind of like, well, what's going on with this guy? Like,
right.
Is this guy's out? This guy's kind of seems like a lone wolf to me.
Yeah, I guess that in terms of how I came up in comedy, that's a fair assessment because I wasn't in a pack that was all doing arenas and Billboard charts and top selling platinum albums. I was alone.
Yeah,
I was really alone. There wasn't another person. Dice was 25 years ahead of me, having done Madison Square Garden 1990, and I bumped into him at Mulberry Street Pizza when I was like, it was like 05, 06, and everything. I was by myself, just having a slice, just fucking sitting there, napkins on my face. He sat right in front of me, and I got to, have this conversation with an icon, somebody I looked up to, and I felt like finally I was talking with somebody who really understood when I was talking about the hardships that went with it and the loneliness. There was some loneliness. I was like, I got here because I wanted to be in the community and share, but I didn't know I was going to seemingly skyrocket to where people felt like a disappointment. I thought that was good for the business of all comedy.
Right.
Because in the 90s, comedy albums were dead. Everybody was telling me comedy was kind of like, after the boom of the 80s, everybody told me, they're like, comedy isn't like, it was oversaturated. Comedy Central wasn't putting on people that were really seasoned and ready. And so there was a period of time where comedy was a little bit bottom of the totem pole. And I felt like, hey, I think I'm helping to shed light on a new generation of comedy fans.
Yeah.
So outside perspective, very different about what people felt of me to what I was hoping that I was emulating out there for others,
Yeah. And jealousy probably was huge. I mean, I can only imagine that, like, because everybody was a little bit jealous of Dane Cook, I think,
I think that what happened was a lot of comics would say to me, man, I'm so sick of DJs and people that are interviewing me for my show. I'm trying to literally saying, why don't you do what Dane does?
Yeah.
Why aren't you? And it was frustrating.
Well, I heard you say on stage one time, this is one of the most interesting things I'd ever heard someone say on stage. You said, I've been going to therapy a lot recently, and it's interesting that I sat down in the therapist's office for the first time, and they're like, oh, Dane Cook, I've heard your name a lot in here from other comedians.
Yeah.
And that was like such an interesting, I just remember hearing that, man, and that was such an interesting thing.
Yeah, it was weird. I remember that moment and being like, because he had worked with a lot of comedians. Yeah. He was recommended by
via the comedy community.
Like, you should talk to him because he gets it. He knows the world of comedy. His opening line literally was, "Your name comes up a lot in here, man." And it's like the vulnerability in that moment of being like, and then wanting to know, what are they saying?
Of course. Of course. That would be so bizarre because then it's like there's so much of you going on outside of you. Right. There's such a view and such a conversation of you outside of you.
Right. And it wasn't till some time that certain comics had come to me and said, one comedian, she was so I don't want to name drop her if she wants to come forward and say
it's
who
probably
it was.
Whitney Cummings, but it
was not Whitney.
Okay.
But I love Whitney. But this comedian came to me and just said, it took me a while. I was one of the people that bashed you. I misjudged you. And she's like, a lot of that was my own feeling of not getting to, what I was hoping, the fear. It's really like everything comes back to love and fear, man. What drives us?
Oh yeah.
And what we want to hold on to and what we want to pass up on.
Good evening, good afternoon, and other times. Thanks for watching that video you just saw. I mean, it was okay. But the next video you could watch could be way better. What if you watch a video right now that changes your life? Well, you could. Watch this one. Or watch this one. Watch this one. Watch this one. Watch this one. Ah!